The ECG is at the center of the issue with its financial underreporting and weak internal controls, contributing to some of the most serious breaches highlighted in the 2024 Auditor General's report. Notably, in 2023, ECG understated its revenue by over 2.95 billion cedis, understated, reporting only 8.64 billion to the Ministry of Energy and other oversight bodies, despite collecting 11.59 billion. That's almost 12 billion. Now, this is particularly concerning amid the country's ongoing efforts to recover and invest heavily in energy sector infrastructure, access, and transition projects. The Auditor General's report emphasizes that while a significant portion of the irregularities is recoverable, there is a pressing need for stricter enforcement of financial management rules, improved accountability, and stronger internal audits within ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, this is worrying, especially when, as part of identifying some of the problems or challenges with ECG, we're thinking about privatizing the distributing aspect of ECG, and you have been consistent about saying that no, the problem is much deeper than just privatizing aspect of ECG's operations. Now, it looks like I'm going to say you've been vindicated. This is the problem that ECG has. Basically has to do with I don't know what I have to call it, corruption, because some would say that's a bit too strong. But we've just not managed the finances of ECG well.
Well, I mean, are you not tired of reading the Auditor General's report and analyzing it and so on? I'm tired. You've done it for 20 years. You understand? Every time you take the Auditor General report, you read it, you issue statements, you discuss it, and worse happens the next year.
Right.
So I'm really tired, you know. It goes to the Public Accounts Committee. It hits the headlines and so on. And the next year, it gets worse. You understand?
Right.
So I'm really tired of discussing these matters. There's something which is very interesting. And I've just taken the Constitution. I was going to look for it, but I don't think I'm going to have the time to look for it.
Okay.
The Constitution makes provision for the establishment of a tribunal. A tribunal which will be made up of persons which shall include, I think, a chartered accountant,
Okay.
and a non-lawyer, and so on,
Right.
to deal with the reports, the audited accounts of the Auditor General.
Right.
Do you know that since 1990 we haven't established that tribunal?
Wow.
We haven't established that tribunal. And from what I've learned, we have not established that tribunal because there was a time when we had a Chief Justice who felt uncomfortable with the use of the word tribunal.
Yeah.
And felt very uncomfortable with the fact that persons who are not lawyers will sit on such a tribunal. And because of that, even though the Constitution makes the provision for the establishment of a tribunal, we have not established that tribunal which will deal with such cases. You know, so the cases come up, the courts are already inundated with all kinds of cases.
Yeah.
You know, this is a country in which criminal trials can go on for 10, 15, 20 years without resolution.
That's true.
So this has just become an annual ritual. And I don't know what to say. It's just an annual ritual.
Essentially saying that it will continue to be so until it is punished. If it goes unpunished, as we've seen over the years.
That's part of the argument. Okay. But even how do you punish? Do you send such cases to the existing courts, which already are overburdened, which are so slow? The existing court. I mean, I was in the Salon prison as an inmate in 1986. And there were people who had been in remand, you know, for 18 years. Their cases had not been dealt with. Look at the trial of this guy who is accused of the murder of J.B. Dankwa Edu.
Yes. What's the name of it? Until he was released just recently.
Sexy Dondo.
Yeah, Sexy Dondo.
Is he released?
No, he's there. I thought you were talking about Afokus.
Yeah, but even their focal case.
For 10 years.
10 years and so on.
Remand.
So if you have these circumstances and you want to deal with the Auditor General's report expeditiously, you might want to look for another mechanism. And the Constitution gives us the leeway. And we say, no, we won't do it. How can those who have the responsibility for enforcing the Constitution choose and select? How can they? The Constitution says establish a tribunal to deal with these matters, and that the tribunal, the membership of the tribunal should include, I think, a chartered accountant, somebody who is not a lawyer, and so on. And we say no, because of this fixation with the word tribunal.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the word court? Substantial difference between the word court and tribunal. And so that's where we are, and things get worse. As for ECG, the least spoken about the ECG, the better. I mean, you've heard all the revelations which have been made and so on. I remember one. I think it was in the 1980s, something very significant happened. ECG transformers needed to be rewound. There was a company in Ghana, in Accra, which was doing that. The leadership of the ECG decided that it would not award the contract for rewinding the transformers to that company registered in Ghana, operating from Ghana. And that it would take the transformers all the way to Nigeria. Okay. Do you know where the transformers ended up?
Scrapyard.
No. They sent the transformers to the Olumba Church to be rewound.
How?
Yeah, but that's what happened. That's what the Auditor General revealed. It went to the Olumba Church.
Which year was that?
This was in the 80s. I covered that story, I covered that story as a journalist. Sent it to a church to rewind the transformer.
It was sold.
And we paid in pounds sterling. We paid the full cost of rewinding the transformers ahead. And do you know what happened? The transformers were never rewound and they never came back to Ghana, and we paid for the cost of rewinding them. It's the 1980s. It's 1980s.
Peak of the revolution.
1980s. This is what happened. Olumba Church. Now what happened? Nothing. So this has become an annual ritual, worthless ritual. Some rituals actually are worth something. But there's a worthless ritual every year. So, Master, what can I say?
Yeah.
I think we should just move on.
Me?
The
showing in Parliament.
Revelations from the Auditor General report, from what you said, is under statement of their revenue generation. Well, I remember when Dubik was there, he rather put a lot of adrenaline for revenue generation for the ECG. That led to some part of government institutions their light to be off. I remember Parliament was hit at the time, making sure that all debts are collected to make sure that they'll be able to pay these power producing companies and all that. And there was this effort that was made between the Energy Ministry, the Finance Ministry, and the ECG. So that whatever collections that they do, there is a fraction, greater part of it that is used in servicing the debts of these power producing companies. But by and large, the Auditor General report is saying that there were some breaches of procurement issues and all that. If there are procedures and processes to follow in procurement, why should we shortchange the process? Because at the end of the day, you're the officer in charge of this arrangement. A time will come that you'll be called to order. You know very well that you are supposed to go through all these procedures and processes to make sure that you do the needful. Because if you don't do that, and like the Auditor General is reporting on, it has come to the fore that you did not follow through. And that alone is a breach of the law, which people will be definitely dragged to come and respond to these things. It is an eyesore. It's not the best. Therefore, anybody who is given a responsibility of office, your duty is to make sure that you do what is right, because one day you'll be called to account for some of these things. Unfortunately, the Minister for Energy, when you started reading the report and he said I thought it's the whole ministry, and then you narrow it down to ECG. So I think that it is something that we need to look at it, because it is not only the ECG that's come up now. Maybe other ones will be coming.
Yeah. But a number of agencies. The only reason why I decided to angle it from the ECG, because ECG has been in the news for a long time. They're missing containers and so on.
Oh, that container will never miss. It's only the minister who rushed. He should have taken his time, because you can't get up and steal containers from the port.
Right.
If you want to steal a container, it's a coordinated effort that will be done. So I think that, yes, the news is out there as to how these breaches came about. And I'm sure the necessary modalities will be done as to how this came. But going forward, what do we do to prevent some of these things? Because a whole amount of money that has gone down the drain, it's a problem. And you can imagine people in Dodi Island. I've been there before.
Yeah.
And in Dodi Island, there's no hospital. There's no even chief's compound. There is no school. And if children in Dodi Island sit on a canoe and take about 2 hours to leave the island and go to the assembly in the Sujaman constituency, you can imagine the risk involved. The day the weather will be so bad, these children cannot go to school. And even if they are on the canoe and they are going to school and the weather is bad, it can throw these children out of the place and they can lose their lives. So these monies that goes down the drain, it is something that we need to look at, because the state will use this money to develop the country. You get what I mean? So clearly, it's a bit uncomfortable hearing some of these things. And in auditing, what has been the remarks of the auditor and the finance director of ECG? Because in the management letters, they'll be given opportunity when these queries are coming up. What were their responses? I wanted to hear that part of their response in auditing.
Right.
Because if these breaches were going on, they'll be called by the auditors. Provide this document, give me this, give me that, give me that. Why did you sit down for these things to continue? Right. It is out of these things, if there are no proper documentation, that's why the auditor will come out with a report and say, look, these are the breaches that has come up. So for me, it is not a good news. It's not good for us. How would you do to avoid the wastage of some of these money that will have been used in the development of certain places in the country?
Okay.